Hello. How are you? Good. Welcome to church. Glad you guys are here at Vineyard this weekend. Excited that you have joined us. Got a lot of good things going on. Before I get into the message, let me just tackle a few of those. One is that we are heading into the last week of 21 days of prayer and fasting. And so, we've heard stories of what God is doing in people's lives and how He's speaking to people. And I encourage you, if you haven't been a part of this journey with us, jump in. We got 1 week left, and it's just going to be a really incredible, exciting time in this next week. And I would encourage you, our Tuesday morning prayer times at 6 a.m. here in this room have been powerful and just a really sweet time in the presence of God. So if you can be a part of this last one, Tuesday at 6 o'clock, I encourage you to be a part of that. And then next Sunday at 6 o'clock is a night of worship and baptism, kind of as a close to the fast for us just to come together and celebrate everything that God has done in our lives. And so I just want to encourage you, jump in and be a part of that. It's just been so powerful. I believe God's got even more for us over the course of the last week. So jump in and be a part of that. I always like to bring you something that you can connect to that just shows how you're making a difference in the lives of people. And so some people may be asking, hey, why do you make groups such a big deal? Why do you make the investment that you make into this weekend? And why you buying balloons to try and get people to sign up and hang out together? Well, let me tell you, I got a note this week from a guy named Wes who goes to our North Kansas City campus. And he just wrote this note about the significance of what his group means. It says, after a few weeks of going to church, a friend asked me if I wanted to come to the group that they belong to, and I said yes, that I would. He told me they were getting ready to start a new Bible study, and it would give me information of what the scripture that was being read on the weekends. And so I think that the timing was great because I'd be new to the group and I wouldn't come into the middle. And so when I got there, everybody was welcome. They welcomed me with open arms. And I started attending and getting to know people better. Now the group has become a big part of my life. The fellowship of the group, the study of the group, how everyone's gotten to know each other, how we help each other through things. You can speak up, and there are always people there to help you and support you, and you know that you won't be going through life alone. Because of that, the group has gotten so close. It's not just a group, it's my group. It's friendships. We do life together outside of group more than just that once a week. And so because I'm new to Scripture, it's been good to me to help me understand things, and I'm able to ask questions and hear different points of view as I learn. And it makes learning and growing in your faith not monotonous or boring when it brings people together that you can trust and do life with. And he also just said that he wanted to give a shout out to North Kansas City, so doing that too. So isn't that powerful, what God can do when we bring us together in relationships? And so this is my last push to say join a group, but also to say thank you for your investment. Week in and week out when you give, it enables us to create things like groups that can help people connect in relationship, can help people come together and grow in their faith. And so I'm so grateful to you for your faithfulness every week. You don't know it, but you've made a difference in the life of Wes. So thank you so much for your investment. All right before I get into the word, I have one more announcement. You are going to notice for the next few weeks that Pastor Michelle and Zach, Pastor Michelle is our worship pastor. Zach does all of our weekend production. They're not going to be here for a few weeks, and this is for a very good reason. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you Owen Taylor Horde, their brand new baby boy. Born just this week, and they are so excited. We're getting him in office ready to immediately join the staff. We're just so thrilled for Zach and Michelle and this new journey that they're on. And there he is, ready to jump right in. I think they've got a plan for his life. Again, we won't see them for a few weeks, but that's why. So would you just be in prayer for them as they start this new journey as parents? And we're so excited for them and for Owen, and just grateful that everyone's okay. And it's good times, right? That's how we grow the church. All right, you ready to get in the Word today? Well, we're in a series called Oddities, and what we're doing is we're looking at stories in the Bible that are weird, that are odd, that sometimes just need to be addressed because like no one's talking about them. So that's what the journey that we've been on. And I talked last week about Elisha and some bears that came out of the woods. And I started to study something else this week, and I really felt like the Lord kind of brought me back to Elisha. And so I want to tell you, I think there's a lot of things that we could stop and address with Elisha because of the miracles that he sees in his life. But this in particular is just where I felt like God brought my heart, and I feel like it's a word for us right now. So we're going to be in 2 Kings chapter 6, and we're going to start in verse 1. We're just going to be going over 7 verses today, but I think that God has something that he wants to say to us. It just says this, verse 1, one day the group of prophets came to Elisha and told him, "As you can see, this place where we meet with you is too small." So between where we landed last week with Elisha transitioning into new things, into Elijah is gone, Elisha is now become this main voice of God, the lead prophet, in this new role and responsibility. A lot of things between that and this moment have transpired. God has used Elisha to perform some pretty powerful miracles and just some things that have happened through his life. So here's just a few of them. A child has been raised by the dead. Hundreds of people had been fed from one loaf of bread. A captain in the army had been healed of leprosy. And so these are just a few of the things that happened. And so the reputation of how God was using Elisha and his life was spreading. And so we find ourselves back. Last week, there was this school of prophets that was discouraging Elisha, saying, maybe it's not your time, we should go find Elijah. And now we find in this moment, Elisha is back with this school of prophets, the same ones who doubted him. Do you remember these guys, 2 Kings 2:17? But they kept urging him until they shamed him into agreeing, and he finally said, all right, send them. Well, now they've seen everything that's happened through Elisha's life, and now they're just fully on board. They're like, okay, well, I guess you were right. You are the guy. And so they're bought in, following Elisha's leadership. His reputation has grown, and so has the school of prophets. People are wanting to come and hear the teaching, learn how to do ministry, and it's grown so much that they have outgrown the facility that they're using. Now, I want you to understand that Israel at this time is in a very dark period. They had this string of bad kings who had leaned into idol worship. And so this idol worship was rampant at the time. There'd been famine in the land, and Israel had been taken over, and ministry had, things were just difficult. But all through that time, this ministry had grown. People were being drawn in. And I think that this serves as a good reminder for us that people are drawn to the presence of God. See, this change that we see in the prophets, the growth that the school is showing, is Elisha's faithfulness to be a carrier of God's presence, and his willingness to be obedient is drawing more and more people to experience his presence. And this should be the desire of our lives, that when we go someplace, when we step into a spot, we usher the presence of God with us. That we become carriers of his presence, that there's atmospheric changes when we step into a place. You know, Scripture tells us that light and dark cannot coexist. So when you invite the presence of God into your life and you step into a place, no matter how spiritually dark it is, the atmosphere of that place has to change because you're ushering the presence of God in with you. And so people are seeing it, even though idol worship is big and there's rampant and all these things that are happening in the world, the presence of God is showing up through Elisha's life and people are drawn. So much so that the building that they're meeting in can't even contain the amount of people that are showing up and saying, I want to be a part of that. And I believe that speaks so loud for us that it's not just about what we do here on the weekend, but it's about what God is doing in your life and what you take with you into your workplace and into your home and into businesses and everywhere that we go. If we can become carriers of the presence of God, it will atmospherically change our city, change our church, and change the world. So they have to expand. There's more people coming. So they say this, verse 2, let's go down to the Jordan River where there are plenty of logs. There we can build a new place for us to meet. All right, he told them, go ahead. Now I love here that they have this plan. Let's go cut some logs and build ourselves a bigger, better building to house all of these new people that are coming in. It seems logical. It's the right thing to do. Our building's too small. We need more space. Let's make something bigger. But even though it made sense and it was the logical solution, they still waited for confirmation from Elisha before they went. They checked with him and to say, hey, this makes sense to us. This place is too small. We need probably a bigger spot. So we're thinking we're going to go cut some logs and we're going to bring them up here. We'll make something bigger. And so instead of just looking at the logical thing and saying, this makes sense, we're going to go do it, they waited until they felt like they had the confirmation that it was the right thing for them to do. And I think, how many times have we thought that we had the right answer and we know that it makes sense, we know what we made to do, we know what we really felt like we were supposed to do, so we just started traveling down the road and we got to a place where we found out it wasn't right. It was not the thing that we were supposed to do. And I think especially in our spiritual lives, in the battles that we face, and the troubles that we encounter, with this discomfort that we sense in moments, and we just think, I know the logical answer. I know how to make this work. And so we just start moving without figuring out if it's God's plan or not. We just start doing things. And I have to tell you that often things with God, the logical answer isn't the answer. So knowing that you've heard from him is so important. So before they go, they say, hey, we've got this plan. We're going to go cut down some logs. What do you think? And he goes, go ahead. And it's confirmation for them to say, okay, I'll go. Okay, verse 3. Please come with us, someone suggested. I will, he said. And I love this because they've gotten confirmation and they're supposed to go, but then they invite him to go with them. I think sometimes we act like getting the thumbs up from God in a situation, this new venture, this new idea, that all we needed from him was a green light. Thanks, God. I appreciate it. I'll take it from here. And so we just start traveling down the road. But do we not realize the value of having him with us always? It's like in crisis and in the big decision and the lack of direction, we know that we need God. When we feel like we don't know where we're going, we're desperate to hear from him so that we can get the direction to figure out where we're supposed to go. But then when we've got some direction, when we feel like we know what we're supposed to be doing, we're content to just walk away until we need him again. We treat him like the guy who holds stuff. Now, you don't know what that means because this is a terminology that me and my son Holston have coined together. Guy who holds stuff. It is Holston's least favorite thing in the world. Because if I am working on a project in the house and I'm like putting together a piece of furniture and I've got my hand holding two pieces together and I can't reach the screwdriver that's on the floor over there, I call out for Holston to come and hand me the screwdriver. And then I start doing something else, and I reach over and I hand him the screwdriver, and he goes, can I go? And I go, no. Just stand there. So he just is like, do you want me to help you put that together? No, I'm good. Just stand there. And it's this way, whether we're putting something together or maybe we're working on something out in the garage. We're doing something. He'll be like, can I help you do this? And I'm like, no, I got it. Just hold this for me. And so one day we were just sitting there. I was putting together some furniture, and he goes, "You know what, Dad, this is the worst." He's like, "I am guy who holds stuff." And he is funny. He just goes to me, "It's like being the worst superhero sidekick ever." "Hey, do you want me to help you in this fight?" No. Just hold my stuff. So we've just said, hey, I will tell him now, hey, I need a guy who holds stuff. And as he's gotten older, obviously he can do more and participate more and help me out with the stuff that we're doing. But it's just that frustration of him being guy who holds stuff. And we treat God that way. Oh, I'm in the middle of a project. I'm in the middle of something that I'm supposed to be doing. There is, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, there's just this little thing that I can't do. I would like God for you to be adjacent to me, but not involved with what I'm doing. We treat God like he's just the guy who holds stuff. And that when we call on him, we wish that he'd give us something, but we're content to do most of it on our own. And then I think if it was just so crazy to me that we don't pause and think, yeah, but he is the sovereign God who knows everything and can see our future and can help you do whatever it is that you're doing better than you're doing it. So why wouldn't we invite him to be a part of the intricacies of it, to partner with us in doing it, to walk with us through everything? Instead of just being, will you just stand here and hold my stuff until I need you? Would you be involved in it? So hear me, we need to invite God to be involved in everything all of the time. Not just some stuff some of the time, but everything all of the time. That the power of a God that knows your future, wants the best for you, and he desires to be in the details of your life. Psalm 37 says it this way: the Lord directs the step of the godly. Look, he delights in every detail of their lives. Though they stumble, they will never fall, for the Lord holds them by the hand. A God who wants to be involved in the details of your life, who desires to walk with you and to order your steps and to help you get to the places that will be best for you. He wants to be involved in the details, and you're like, yeah, hold my stuff. But in here, the prophets they realize not just the value of the direction, but the value of Elisha's presence. We need to invite God into the details of our lives and to be a part of all that we do. And so with these young prophets, not only do they get permission, but they invite him to go with them. So they go up, and he goes with them, verse 4. So he went with them. And when they arrived at the Jordan, they began cutting down trees. But as one of them was cutting a tree, his axe head fell into the river. "Oh, sir," he cried. It was a borrowed axe. Now, in the original language here is a couple things that we miss if we don't have the context. The first one is it says one of them was cutting a tree, but when you look at the original language, it can be translated to the one was cutting down the tree. What they're transposing there is that the one who asked him to go is the one who was cutting down the tree. The same one who asked Elisha on the journey is the same one who's cutting the tree. And so he's swinging the axe to chop down the tree, and the head of the axe comes loose. When he goes back to swing, it comes loose. The head of the axe flies off, and it falls into the Jordan River. And in this moment, this young prophet falls into immediate despair. There's this exclamation, "Oh no. Oh no." And then he calls out for Elisha, "Oh no." That was a borrowed axe. Now, without any kind of context for us, It's like, you just have to understand, there's no Home Depots. On your way home, you can't just stop and go pick up another axe for the person that you borrowed one from. In fact, to come by an axe was a pretty big deal, because you had to get iron and forge it and shape it into the head of an axe. You had to grind it down to make it sharp. You had to shape it into a place where it could fit onto a handle. It had to be worked over and blacksmithed and worked, and iron wasn't just laying around. It had to be mined up. So in ancient Israel, having an axe was a big deal, and this young prophet has just lost the expensive part of the axe. He didn't lose the handle. He lost the iron head. This was expensive. And just even the fact that he borrowed the axe would give us a clue into the financial status of this young prophet who has given his life over to being in this school of the prophets. So when the axe head comes flying off and it falls into the Jordan River, the reason that there is this exclamation and this despair that he has in his life is because he can't afford this axe. That's why he had to borrow it. And in ancient Israel, borrowing and lending were taken very seriously. So this young prophet, who clearly didn't have the funds for an axe, he couldn't just stop and make another one and give it to him. Which means that when he lost this axe head and he went back to the person who had lent it to him, he couldn't afford to pay him for it. He couldn't afford to get another one, which meant that he still owed him for the axe. And in this culture, at this time, if you owed somebody something and you couldn't pay, it meant that you became an indentured servant. And if you look at the value of what this would have been, that he's looking to 2 to 3 months of slave labor working for the person who he borrowed this axe from. So just in an accident, when he brings the axe handle back and it just flies back and falls down into the river, it's watching 3 months of him being disconnected from the ministry go down into the river. Moments of his life where he can't learn and grow down into the river. Places that he didn't intend to be going down into the river. That cry of despair is a real cry of despair. It's not just losing an axe head, it's losing moments of his life, moments of his ministry, moments of personal connection. So can you see it now, the despair, the frustration, the anguish? And in some places, the Jordan River was 17 feet deep. It's not like he could just jump down in and swim down to the bottom and fight the current to try and figure out where it's at and to fish it out. When it went, it was gone. So he cries out to Elisha in desperation. Why? Because this is a desperate situation. And I felt in my heart coming into this weekend that there are some people who are in desperate situations. You need answers. You need a breakthrough. You need a miracle. And you haven't known where to turn. Look what Psalm says in Psalm 50:15. Then call on me when you're in trouble, and I will rescue you. And you will give me glory. Call on the Lord, and he will come to your rescue. He will intervene on your behalf. He can step into your world and be your problem solver, and he can be your miracle worker. But I think that sometimes, even in our desperate situations, we're still just trying to figure it out on our own. So there's a good chance that if he would have just tried to jump into the river, he'd have been taken with the river. But he's desperate, and so he acts desperate. He's desperate, and so he cries out for help instead of trying to stay buttoned up and act like he's okay. It was a desperate moment, and so he acted desperate. And it was because in his desperation that he cried out and asked for help that intervention could come. It was because he acted desperate in a desperate situation that someone could hear the cry of desperation. And so when we see that in Psalm, God is saying, call on me when you're in trouble, maybe in our desperate situations, we should get vocal with God about how desperate we are and ask him to intervene. Ask him to step into our situations. And then what happens? Your life gives him glory. So he calls on Elisha. And what does Elisha do? Here comes the weird part of the story. Verse 6, where did it fall? The man of God asked. And he showed him the place. And Elisha cut a stick and threw it onto the water at that spot. And then the axe head floated to the surface. Yep. That ain't supposed to happen. Iron does not float. I don't know if you've... This is just so fascinating to me. It's fascinating that it happens, right? When you just look at it and you go, oh, the miracle of the fact that an axe head floats. But it's also just weird to me the way that Elisha does it. This word stick that we're reading in here is really just translated to wood. We don't know how much wood it was. We don't know if it was a log, if it was a big stick. But just nothing about it really makes sense. I need to get this axe head back. Okay, well, I'm just going to throw some wood out there, and that'll just make it float on up. That's what sticks out to me. Like, wood doesn't have magical powers. Oh, he could have thrown out dust, some leaves. No, he's very specific. That he goes and takes the effort to go get this wood and to throw it out there. The reason that they were out there was to get wood to build a new structure. And now they're down an axe head, unable to be productive. And Elisha picks up what it is that they're supposed to be gathering and just throws it out into the river. Somebody worked to cut that down. And he picks it up and he throws it out into the river. It seems counterproductive. They don't have chainsaws. Every piece is precious. And yet he chooses to throw in the resources that they're there to gather. And what does that speak to us? Sometimes we have to give up some of what we have to get what we need. Look, we want to hear from God, so he's going to need some of our time. We complain about not having enough time, but we're not giving up any of our screen time. We want a better relationship with our spouse, but we won't give up other relationships that are pulling us away from them. You want more in your relationship with your kids, but you're making effort other places. Sometimes you've got to give up some of what you've got to give something that you need. If you want God to be operating in your life where things can happen, so this is the question, do you really want those things that you claim that you want? Do you really want a difference to happen in your life? Then hear me, your willingness and your sacrifice speak directly to your desire. Your effort and your willingness speak directly to your desire. This is what this time of fasting has been all about. What are you willing to lay down in order to hear more from God? To understand more, to receive more? Take what it is that you've got in your hands. Are you willing to lay it down to get more? Are you willing to lay down your desires for God's desires? Are you willing to lay down what it is that you've achieved so that God can achieve more in your life? Sometimes it means sacrificing even what you don't want to sacrifice, what you've held on so tightly to. But that might be what it takes for the miracle to happen, for the breakthrough to happen, to see God's power in your life. So he takes this piece of wood and he throws it out onto the water, and then in a miracle, and it doesn't make any sense, an iron axe head floats to the surface. And here's what Elisha says, verse 7, grab it, Elisha said. And the man reached out and grabbed it. He says, grab it. Man, I felt like the Lord spoke so clearly to me for somebody this weekend. You felt like God's been opening a door for you. You see miracles that are happening in your life, but you've been afraid to reach out and grab it. Because you know that what the life change means if you do. You know that something's going to be different, but God's been opening a door. He's been working something out on your behalf. And I want you to hear me. God's telling you to grab it. That thing that he's been bringing to the surface in your life, grab it. That thing that he's been revealing to you, grab it. That calling that he's placed on your life, grab it. That thing that you didn't know that you could do and suddenly looks like it's a possibility, grab it. God is calling to somebody. I can feel it. I can sense it in my spirit right now. God is telling somebody, grab it. Grab that thing that you didn't think that you deserved. Grab that thing that you don't know how it's going to work out. Grab that thing that he's calling you to. Grab it. Don't miss it. When the miracle starts to happen, don't miss the miracle because you won't grab it. Take hold of your miracle. Own the responsibility. Let God do the work so that he can use you. Grab that thing. And here's what you have to understand. In that moment, when that axe head floats up to the surface, all of a sudden, this debt is paid. All of a sudden, he can get back to working in the purpose to expand God's kingdom by helping build this place. There's redemption in all of it. Can I close by showing you one more thing? So Elisha laid a piece of wood down on the water that created a way for a young prophet to be freed of the debt that he owed. And the axe head rose out of the water to create a new opportunity for him to live differently than he would have had to live had the miracle not happened. Later in the Bible, there's a piece of wood that would be laid down and a man would be laid down on top of it. And because he was laid down on top of it, his name was Jesus. And because he was laid down on top of it, there was a debt that was paid that we could never pay for ourselves. And can I show you this too? There's this thing that we do that's called baptism. And when we rise up out of the water, it's a declaration to the world that we're going to live differently than we would have had we not had this encounter with Jesus. And in this moment, there was this symbolism, and there was no way that Elisha could have known. There's no way this young prophet could have known. But in this moment, they were perfectly illustrating for us what it looked like to have our lives transformed by relationship with Jesus. An axe head coming out of the water created a declaration of a new day in the same way that baptism does that for us, a declaration of a new day and a new way of life that we'll have going forward. Free from the debt of sin that we owe. When talking about baptism in 1 Peter 3, verse 21, it says, "And that water is the picture of baptism which now saves you, not by removing dirt from your body, but as a response to God from a clean conscience." It's effective because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I feel in my heart that there's some people who need to take hold of their miracle, who need to invite God into the intricacies and the details of their lives, who need to have him walk the journey out with them. And just in this last piece, I want to tell you, next Sunday night, we're doing a night of worship and baptism. And if you feel in your heart that this is the moment for you to make a public declaration about what God is doing in your life, that would be an awesome time. We can celebrate with you in the symbolism of what it means to be connected in life-giving relationship with Jesus, and to celebrate that public declaration of that my life will be different now than it was before. So I want to pray. I want to pray for those who know they need to grab their miracle, for those who need to invite him on the journey, and those who need to make a declaration of their faith. Can we just go to the Lord in prayer right now? God, I just lift up anyone under the sound of my voice right now, God. I believe that you're speaking, and I believe that you're moving. And God, I can sense that there are tugs in the hearts of people who know that they've left you just standing, holding their stuff. And so would this be a declarative moment in the lives of people to say, God, I invite you into the details. I invite you into the intricacies, into the big things and into the small things. Would you not just give me permission to go, but would you walk with me? And God, for those who can sense you moving, you're opening doors. You're making a way, and there's been hesitancy in hearts to grab the miracle that you've got for them. God, would they grab it? Would they take hold of the plan and hold of the purpose? Would you reveal it to them, God, and would they grab hold of it and allow it to drive their life? And would we recognize the importance of the declaration of our lives that we're connected in relationship with you, and would it spur it to make a declaration with our lives and with our mouths? And would every place we go be affected by your presence because we're carriers of your Spirit? We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to give you a moment of reflection just to allow God to speak to your heart. And wherever you fall, maybe you need to invite him on the journey. Maybe you need to grab your miracle. Maybe God's working in you to make a public declaration of your faith. Maybe you just know you need to be a carrier of his presence and let your light shine. Would you just allow him to speak to your heart for the next few minutes? I'm going to ask you to stand. I'm going to ask our prayer teams to come and be available. Look, if you're walking through something, come partner with these people and allow them to speak into your life. Pray with you, partner with you, help God get involved in the details of your life. Don't miss it. Take advantage that these people are here for you. I'm just going to give you a few minutes of reflection. I'll come back in a moment and close with the blessing, but would you just take this moment and lean into his voice right now?